Today, I am going to tell you why entrepreneurship is one of the biggest keys to your freedom and self-governance as a man. Now, let me tell you, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, but my entrepreneurial journey did not begin with me strategically thinking about freedom and liberty. I was just a kid who wanted cash in my pocket. You remember being a kid, the feeling of that cold, crisp, green cash in your hand, how you'd be willing to do anything to get your hands on it? Well, that was me, and if you can think of it, I probably did it. Lemonade stands, raking leaves, shoveling snow, mowing grass, I did it all. And at the beginning, that's what my motivation was, is just get your hands on some money. I wanted cash freedom. Now, by high school, I was more into time freedom. I wanted some cash in my pocket, but I wanted to make room for the things I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to go to youth functions with people at my church. I wanted to, go to other social things that were important, hang out with friends. And I didn't want to get a typical job like all the other kids in high school. Most kids I knew went out if they needed some money. They went out and got a job at a coffee shop, a pizza place, a sandwich spot, waiting tables, maybe changing oil someplace. And they were always restricted to their schedule. They were always complaining about some manager that wouldn't let them have time off. And I didn't want that kind of restriction for my life. I had found out and kind of discovered that I didn't need to work an hourly rate. I could charge by the job. And so I was making a pretty good wage for a high school kid. And I was making full-time money with part-time hours. And it was an awesome situation. And so that's the path that I continued down. Now, early college is when I started to get into a bit of a pickle, because I didn't love the work I was doing. It was not something I really enjoyed. It just provided me the kind of freedom I wanted and provided me with a pretty decent income for my age. And so that's what I kind of just found myself doing. I didn't put my time into developing myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't invest in learning how to grow a business. It was just short-sighted, make the next money that I need, next amount of money that I need to be able to live, just short-term income. And that continued for a while. Since I liked the money and freedom, I didn't really know what else to do. I was comfortable where I was. I just continued down that path. Now, a few years later, reality started to set in. Stuff started to hit the fan. Now I had a wife, I had a kid, more house to pay for, more mouths to feed, and I started to panic. All those other kids I'd been out earning in high school and college, well, now they'd graduated college. They were on career paths and getting hired at firms and starting to make pretty good wages. And meanwhile, because I hadn't tried to grow myself, I hadn't invested in growing my business, my income, while it was pretty good in high school and early part of college, now, without increasing, it wasn't looking very good. And I wasn't supporting my family in an effective way. And I started to panic. And the first thing you do when you panic is reach for something to make you feel safe. And so I started reaching out for what I felt was safe. And that was find consistent income. And so I tried to go the route of a regular job. I started to think about it a lot and go, do I want to go corporate? Do I want to work in the blue collar, white collar? What do I want to do? And so I started, assessing my skills and my education and filling out creating resumes and filling out applications and sending them in and doing interviews. And I even had a job for 6 months at an hourly rate. And to be quite honest, I hated every single moment of having a job. And it wasn't just about the work. To be clear, most of the work I was doing was pretty miserable, but it wasn't about the work. It was about being controlled and owned. It was about not having the ability to take the day off if I wasn't feeling well without losing income, and putting myself in some sort of predicament with my bosses. If my wife was sick, I wasn't able to just take the day off and be a dad. If there was some family event or some outing I wanted to take my family on, I couldn't if it conflicted with work. Sometimes it took over on the weekends. The commute in the morning, the working all day at a job I didn't like, the commute home with barely enough time to force feed, sleep, and get up to do it all over again was not compatible with my addiction to freedom. And I also realized not only would a typical job never give me the kind of time freedom I wanted for myself and my family, but but it would also never get me to a place where I would have enough financial freedom to be able to give my family the life I wanted to give them. And it would never allow me to have the kind of impact that I wanted to have in the world. And so I reached this juncture, this point of deciding where I had to go, am I going to choose to follow and have consistent income and a safe situation, or at least temporarily safe, or am I going to choose risk and freedom and adventure? And my deep love for freedom outweighed my desire for security and safety to such a degree that I chose the entrepreneurial path. And let me tell you, I am so incredibly grateful that I chose entrepreneurship, that there is never a moment that I have regretted ever choosing entrepreneurship because of the kind of freedom that it can give me and my family. I'm addicted to freedom. It is my highest value. And so being able to have that not only on the time side, but on the freedom side is unbelievable. And, here, I just want to share with you a few things about the journey that I've discovered on this journey so far. I'm going to start with some of the more obvious ones, but then I want to give you the key to unlock them. And this is really important that you hang on for the key, because no matter the kind of freedom that entrepreneurship can give you, it cannot be unlocked without something very special and very specific. So let's go. First of all, you're not dependent on someone else for a paycheck. Holy smokes, how amazing is that? You don't depend on anyone else for a paycheck. You are the boss. You can't be fired. You can cuss out who you want. You can have a bad day. You can show up late. You can mess up. No one can fire you. You're in charge. You own your own calendar and schedule. You control your life. You can take time off if you want. You can go with your family if you want. You can make time for hobbies and passions. You don't have to work for people you don't like. You can choose your own customers. You can say what you want. There's no DEI nonsense. You don't have to use people's pronouns. You get to hire who you want. Now to the big perks. Unlimited potential when it comes to your earnings. Unlimited freedom of time is on the table. They're not guarantees, but they are on the table. The potential is limitless. No one's going to stop you from making more money. No one's going to stop you from making more money in less time. It is limitless. That's the kind of freedom entrepreneurship can give you. Now, here's another big aspect that I didn't even see coming. And in 2020, this is what I was talking about at the very beginning of this video. I'm only just now beginning to recognize the compounding effects of the entrepreneurial journey on my life. And I'm only just now, recently, being able to see the freedom. Here it is, 2020. When people told me what to do, you remember that? When people told you what to do? Told you what to put on your face? Try to tell you who you could have in your home? Where you could go? What you could say? What to put in your body? Whether you should work or not? Whether you're essential or not? Whether you're allowed to feed your family or not? Which direction to walk down the aisles? What arrow to stand on? You remember that? Yeah, I didn't have to do any of that because my money wasn't tied to my compliance with someone else's political opinion. You know how many men I watched compromise over a paycheck because they were stuck between a rock and a hard place? Put this on your face or you're fired. Don't point out election fraud or you're fired. Put this in your body or you're fired. Call that man a woman or you won't be able to feed your family. I didn't have to do any of that. How many grown men I saw comply and be coerced over a paycheck I understood it. It made sense. But I refused to ever be in that position. Now that I've seen it. The freedom I was given allowed me, while most people were locked up in their homes, going to jobs they hated and putting stuff on their face, I took my family, sold everything out of my driveway, bought a truck and a trailer, and I traveled the country for a year because I could work wherever I wanted, because I had a business that could serve me, because now I've put in the time. I've been down the entrepreneurial path. I've grown the business. Now I'm free. The future, if what we saw in 2020 did not wake you up yet, let me help you. It is time to wake up. Your income and your ability to provide and feed your family and sustain yourself cannot be tied to some other individual's willingness to comply with a corrupt government. You must get free. Entrepreneurship is the way. Period. I believe in it to my core. Entrepreneurship is the way to ultimate freedom. When it comes to things of this earth, anyway. The government can't tell you what to do. Your boss can't tell you what to do. No one can tell you what to believe. No one can tell you what to say. That's the kind of freedom that entrepreneurship can give you. Sounds amazing, right? And it is. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. But there's a catch. Just like everything else you can think of in this world that is worth having, there is a price to pay. You know it to be true. It's a principle. You want a good marriage? It's going to cost you. You want a good body? It's going to cost you. You want a relationship with your kids? It's going to cost you. There is a price. And while entrepreneurship offers massive freedom, like anything else, there's a price to pay. So let's take another look at that list. Those things we talked about, those perks of business ownership and entrepreneurship. By the way, entrepreneurship is not just business ownership. It's the ability to take something and make more with it in the financial realm. All right? I love business ownership. I'm passionate about it, so that's what I'm talking about. But let's take another look at those perks. You're not dependent on someone else for a paycheck. Ooh. Guess who it is dependent on now? That's your shoulders. You can't be fired for being late, being sick, having a bad day, messing up. Oh, can't you? You ever been fired off a job site by a client because you showed up a few days late in a row? It's embarrassing. Trust me, you can get fired. But now you can get fired by everybody. When you're an employee, your boss sets the standards. When you're the boss, guess who sets the standard? And guess who everybody else on your team looks to emulate in upholding the standard? In entrepreneurship, you are the standard. And that is a heavy, heavy weight to bear. Hey, you own your own calendar and decisions. Oh, well, now you got to manage that time. Now you got to choose where the tasks go in that calendar. You got time for hobbies. You got time for adventure. You got time for the family. But when you take off, who does the things? You get to work for who you want. You get to choose your clients. You ever been desperate? Financially? And have to take the job from the client that you didn't want to take the job from because you don't like him? He's a jerk. He talks down to you. You have to hold your tongue with him no matter how many times he insults you. Yeah, you don't always get to choose your boss. I do now, but it took me some time to get there. And I have worked for some miserable people who made me miserable along the way. You get to say what you want. Oh yeah, you can say whatever you want to whoever. I tell you what, I've had to hold my tongue and be humiliated far more as an entrepreneur and business owner than I ever had to working for other people. There's unlimited potential with no cap on earnings and no time-based value. There's also unlimited potential loss and risk with no fail-safes, no safety net, no climbing rope. Because there's unlimited potential for winning, there's also unlimited potential for losing, short of hitting the bottom. That's a heavy weight. When you look at the surface of entrepreneurship and all the benefits it provides, man, sounds like a dream. It just comes with a level of responsibility that requires broad shoulders to carry it. You're going to need broad shoulders to carry this type of responsibility and to grow it. Can you imagine, by the way, handing that level of freedom to someone who wasn't able to manage it? That's like handing unlimited wealth, power, and keys to a really fast car to a 14-year-old you. Can you imagine what you would have done with unlimited freedom and resource at 14 years old? Or at any age where you weren't prepared to handle it? Can you imagine the type of people you would hurt? Type of damage you would cause? How much waste you would create? How many poor decisions and investments you would make? How is that any different than handing entrepreneurship and the freedom it can potentially provide to someone who cannot wield it effectively? And that's the secret to unlocking. Here's the key. Here is the key to unlocking the freedom that entrepreneurship provides. Freedom is not guaranteed by entrepreneurship. Freedom in entrepreneurship is unlocked by the entrepreneur. I'll say it again. Freedom is not guaranteed by entrepreneurship. Freedom is unlocked in entrepreneurship by the entrepreneur. You must become the individual that can manage and wield that kind of freedom and responsibility in an effective way. The business and the entrepreneurship itself does not establish freedom. You establish, maintain, and expand freedom through your own skill and capability as a leader. Let me tell you some of the ways that entrepreneurship shapes you as an individual. It turns you into the kind of man who can be an effective entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is the highest form of personal development, by the way. You can lift weights, you can read books, you can say affirmations, but business ownership and entrepreneurship is by far the greatest form of personal development. And here's why. It touches your life on every level, and the mountain is never climbed. There is no summit. It is a constant growth process. In entrepreneurship, you are always attacking and leaning into risk. Do you know what that does to you as an individual? Most people avoid risk. Most people avoid fear. As an entrepreneur, you must lean into it because that's where growth is found. In entrepreneurship, in business, if you don't adapt, you die. So you stay in a constant state of adapting, learning, growing, attacking fear, developing new skill sets. That turns you into a completely different type of individual than the average job haver in the marketplace. You're always learning new concepts. You're always reading new books. You're always listening to podcasts and building up your own understanding so that you can wield that freedom and power in a more responsible and effective way. You're always changing and growing. You're always developing new relationships and connections through networking. Can you imagine spending your time doing these sort of things and what it does to you? What it does to your character and discipline as a person. By the way, let me say this. I've known a lot of people. I have probably traveled more than most of you. I have lived internationally more than once. I've met a lot of people and done a lot of things that most people won't do in a lifetime. And I've met a lot of rich people. And I've met a lot of poor people. And let me tell you, the rich people aren't the jerks. Because the rich people have had to become something different. I've noticed that wealthy people are on time. They do what they say they're going to do. They're disciplined, they're fit. They don't waste your time. They've been developed. Most wealthy people did not have their money handed to them. They earned it. Because they became the type of individuals who could earn it, grow it, and maintain it. That's because your character and discipline are constantly being stretched in entrepreneurship and on that journey. Your faith is always being stretched. Doubt is always at the door. You never know if the next thing's going to work out, so you must rely on God. You must rely on vision. You must rely on faith. There's a constant pushing of your personal limits so you become more. You learn to be a better salesperson, a better negotiator, a better communicator. You got to learn to follow through and hold up your end of the bargain, even when it hurts you. Man, I've had to follow through on some jobs where I lost my ass financially, but I still followed through and did the job, and it ended up paying off in the long run. But if your word is your brand and your word is your bond, then that's something that you have to do as an entrepreneur. It forces you to do it. You learn to assume fault no matter what. Doesn't matter who dropped the ball. What did you not do to keep that from happening? It forces you to be creative and inventive, your problem-solving skills constantly on display and being developed. You learn individual and team leadership. You learn delegation, motivation, vision, and inspiration. Businesses don't have problems, by the way. They have owner problems that show up in their business. So to run an effective business, you must be an effective individual. Entrepreneurship forces you to operate at a consistently high level because you are the standard. It forces you to conquer you, giving you the power to establish freedom and expand your dominion. So that's the key, everybody. Entrepreneurship does not guarantee freedom, but it is unlocked by the entrepreneur. And that is why entrepreneurship is one of the greatest keys to your freedom and your self-governance as a man. Hope this video blesses you. Like and subscribe, share it with a friend, and I'll see you on the next video.